We're hearing all this talk about Canelo and Crawford, Canelo, Crawford's too small, Canelo's too big, this and that, but does Terence Crawford really have a chance? And I'm going to tell you guys my take on it, and I want you guys to leave your comments down below on whether or not you guys think Terence Crawford can actually beat Canelo. So let's get into it. Can Terence Crawford, first of all, can he compete with Canelo? And I think that the immediate answer right off the top of my head is yes. And I don't like when people compare, performances and then say, oh, just because, Terence Crawford had trouble at 54 with Madrimov means he's going to have trouble with Canelo at 68. And although there's a sense of truth to that in the weight, everybody knows that there are weight classes for a reason. That was the argument made as soon as the even potential thought of Canelo and Crawford first came out. And when, Terence Crawford said, I want to fight Canelo eventually, everyone talked about the weight, rightfully so. That's the first thing that comes to our minds, right? Otherwise, they would have fought before, but they're in different weight classes. And the thing is that, with the Madrimov fight, I picked Crawford to win. I thought he lost the fight just by a little bit, but I'm no judge. I'm not here. This channel isn't for me to say that my opinion is better than professional judges. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that that was a very competitive fight for Crawford, but more importantly, not to take away from what Terence Crawford did on Saturday night, it was a stylistic matchup that was difficult for him. I think a different 154-pounder like Jermell Charlo, I think we would have seen a better version of Crawford in my opinion, but I also feel like putting on weight takes some of that speed off. It's always a concern about fighters moving up. You had guys like Manny Pacquiao, Oscar De La Hoya, all these guys eventually moved up, from their comfortable weight classes, maybe where they were at their best, closer to lightweight. But ultimately, these guys move up, Floyd, and people get concerned about the speed. And I think that Terence Crawford was visibly a little bit slower to the punch than we've seen him in the past. And maybe it's just, getting used to having that extra muscle on him, because let's be real, everybody who knows boxing knows that when you put muscle on, it takes more oxygen to throw those shots, and they don't come as fast. They don't get released, that fast twitch muscle. It's a little bit different when you're putting on weight as opposed to when you're a little bit lighter. And I think we saw that from Terence Crawford. Now, going up to 68, how would that impact Canelo Alvarez, versus Terence Crawford? I think against Canelo, Terence Crawford naturally is going to be the faster fighter. It doesn't matter if he is slower than he typically is at 47. He's still going to be faster than Terence Crawford. The main thing is, like we said, the power. How is Terence Crawford going to handle a 168-pound punch? That's the concern where I'm like, okay, look at the Madrimov fight for a second and see what a 54-pounder was able to do to that eye. Swell it up a little bit with that straight right hand. And then you look at Canelo Alvarez at 68, and you can't help but say, if Terence Crawford gets hit by a clean shot from Canelo Alvarez, what's going to happen? Is he going to have to go down? Are we going to see Bud officially down for the first time in his career? Could he get stopped? And honestly, these are all possibilities if Canelo and Crawford did go down, but it's still a fight that I think the fans ultimately would be willing to see, especially if we don't get Benavidez and Canelo, which it seems like we're not going to. Canelo is asking for $200 million to fight David Benavidez, and then $150 million to fight Terence Crawford. But if Terence Crawford's not a big threat, why do you need 250 or 150 million to fight him? Like, if Terence Crawford isn't a threat to Canelo Alvarez and it's easy work, why do you need $150 million? It's pricing yourself out. Anyone who really knows the sport of boxing knows that sometimes fighters just price themselves out to get out of that potential negotiation. And I think that's what Canelo Alvarez is doing in this case. And I'm not trying to say that, Canelo is a duck, this and that, but I do think that he knows that there's a chance that Terence Crawford beats him. This is boxing. At this point in Canelo's career, people are gonna argue that they're the same age. Yeah, but Canelo's been through the ringer. He's had a lot of amateur fights. He's had a lot of early professional fights. So fighters age differently. That's just the way boxing is. And I think for Canelo Alvarez, it is a competitive fight still, no matter what people say, no matter what happened in the Madrimov fight. Even though I think when I first watched it, I haven't watched it a second time yet. So in my first time watching it, immediate reaction was, that's a draw. If anything, I think, Madrimov might have been able to edge it out, dictated the pace, this and that. But let's also remember why the fight looked the way it did, because this was Terence Crawford's first time at 54. Not only was it his first time at 54, but he fought a champion, an undefeated champion with over 300 amateur fights. So that's the kind of fight that you get. It's not, you can't just look at it from face value and say Madrimov was a nobody and Terence Crawford had a hard time with him. That's being an ignorant fan, that's being an ignorant, having an ignorant perspective of, what happened in that boxing ring that night. There's a lot that went into it. Madrimov was tough, he was awkward, didn't let Terence Crawford do what he wanted in the ring, but he was fast. Like his movement was pretty fast for, a guy at 154, and he had the physical strength. He had a lot that, Terence Crawford had to deal with on that night. Canelo Alvarez not as fast as Madrimov, but still a 168 pounder who's fought there before, who knows how to deal with big shots. I don't think that Terence Crawford's going to be able to really hurt Canelo, maybe get his attention here and there, but his only path to victory, in my opinion, is a unanimous decision, and he could still beat up Canelo in a decision, but I don't think he hurts or stops Canelo Alvarez. If anything, Canelo would get the stoppage if he lands a big shot on Terence. I think I'm more so curious to see how much bigger Canelo would look in that fight against Terence Crawford, because Terence looked skinnier and smaller than Madrimov at 54. So if he went to 68, I'm curious to see how he would look in terms of his physique. I'm not saying that he can't compete, because ultimately, his talent is still on the same level as Canelo. It's just the size that is a bit of a concern for me. Terence Crawford's a great fighter, but there's a ceiling to this moving up in weight stuff. Like, I'm not saying like he can't do it, because money talks. If Canelo's willing to take that fight and people pressure him enough, the offer's too good to turn down, and he takes that Terence Crawford fight, who knows what's going to happen. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'd have to see it play out for myself. But after the Madrimov fight, naturally I had a little bit of a weakening in my confidence that Terence Crawford could make that jump to 68 and beat Canelo. I was very confident before that fight, but if I'm being honest, that Madrimov fight did make me think, Terence Crawford didn't transition to 54 the way that I wanted him to, but it was also the opponent. The opponent as well deserves credit for giving Terence Crawford a hard time, not allowing him to execute the game plan that he wanted to. Like I said in my other videos covering the fight for Madrimov and Crawford, I was there fight week. Crawford looked locked in, but in the actual fight, he looked a lot slower. That's just the facts of what I saw. He looked slower to the punch. He had a difficult and hard time with the rhythm of Madrimov and getting in and engaging, getting his combinations off, the timing of when to counter him, because Madrimov was trying to counter Bud, and Bud's usually, the one countering an aggressive fighter. So that's what gave Bud a hard time. And I think against Canelo Alvarez, if Canelo kind of sees that, and also remember that Canelo thought that Bud lost that fight, and maybe that's a biased perspective because he doesn't want to fight him, so saying that he lost would kind of insinuate that he wouldn't fight him because he lost. So either way, Bud still got the decision win, and I'm not going to say it was a robbery, even though I picked Madrimov. I thought Madrimov won the fight. I'm not going to say it's a robbery because it was one of those Lomachenko and Haney fights where it was, in my opinion, too close to call, and it's like either way people are going to be upset no matter how this fight goes. But close fight. The judges had a unanimous decision. I thought that it was a split decision in favor of Madrimov, potentially a draw, but the fans seem to be split on it. Some people think he lost, some people think Bud won. So ultimately he got the decision win, and he's saying that everybody who believes that Madrimov won, he doesn't agree with that, obviously, and he thinks that those opinions are casual opinions. But I know the fight that I saw, and I just didn't see him dominate. I thought it was a very competitive fight, could have gone either way. I had Madrimov winning by a little. But in terms of Terence Crawford and Canelo, I think Terence is going to have to be very careful throughout 12 rounds and hope that Canelo's conditioning, as we've seen in the past, starts to wear down on him and slow him down, you know, towards the end of the fight, and hopefully Terence can capitalize on that and then come out with a decision win. I think that's the only way that Terence wins this fight. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Can Terence Crawford beat Canelo Alvarez? I say yes. I think he has about a 50% chance, honestly. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace.
That's going to do it for another Nads Fight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Mandabong, with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.